English translation 631st Contact Wednesday, the 14th of October 2015, 22:37 hours.
I was expecting you, Ptaah. Welcome and greetings, my friend.
I am glad to see you well, Edward, and I also greet you, dear friend. Unfortunately, my time today is again limited, more strictly than on Sunday, which is why you should raise your questions immediately.
Too bad, but actually I only had a few things that raised private questions. But if you are already here, then we can work through them right now. It is. With that, all 6 questions are over. But I still have this one here, which I am sure will interest you as well. Look.
Do you want me to read the whole thing?
Yes, of course, it's not much. It is an article that I received from Achim Wolf, and that Bernadette downloaded onto my computer.
Ptaah reads the article.
IS as a result of the teachings of the Quran. Best-selling author Abdel Samad, without violence, Islam could not survive. Monday, 12.10. 2015, 17:57 hours.
Hamed Abdel Samad.
The German-Egyptian political scientist Hamed Abdel Samad heats up the emotions with his work, Mohammed. His book is currently #1 on the Spiegel bestseller list. He claims the IS has a lot to do with Islam and the teachings of the Quran. According to best-selling author Hamed Abdel Samad, Mohammed, A Reckoning, the Islamic State terror militia is the logical consequence of the teachings of the Quran. All those who claim that the IS has nothing to do with Islam prevent its fight, the German-Egyptian political scientist told the journal Herder Correspondence, HK. With the Muhammad book, Abdel Samad is currently #1 on the Spiegel bestseller list of nonfiction books. For me, the Islamic State is a legitimate child of Muhammad, his work and his statements. The Islamic scholar Muhannad Khorshid contradicts this.
The Islamic scholar Muhannad Khorshid.
Professor contradicts Abdel Samad told the HK that Islam had been associated with violence against non-Muslims from the outset. Muhammad only became successful through violence. Without violence, Islam could not survive. Without violence, Islam could not spread. Professor Khorshid of the University of Munster contradicted in the HK special issue Religion unter Verdacht. The professor for Islamic religious education emphasizes, if the IS would be the consequence of Muhammad's teaching, the majority of Muslims would be happy about the IS, would support the state and identify with it. But that's not the case right now. The IS also had political reasons, such as the disintegration of Iraq under Saddam Hussein. Abdel Samad was called to death in June 2013 after a lecture in Cairo. After that, he got personal protection in Germany.
A really stupid writing, because the Quran has nothing to do with the teachings of Muhammad.
Exactly. So I find the assertions of this book writer Hamed Abdel Samad quite idiotic, although I have to appease the fact that he cannot know what the reality and truth concerning Muhammad is. In the same situation of ignorance is of course also the Islam scientist Muhannad Khorshid. He only knows the Quran as it exists today, and which does not correspond to what Muhammad effectively taught as a messenger. Namely, exactly the same teaching of the truth, teaching of the spirit, teaching of the life, as the messengers Emmanuel, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Elijah, and Enoch taught them. And this teaching was put down on paper extensively on my part, and that already from the year 1975, whereby it is spread worldwide since then, whereby the main works, like the OM and Goblet of Truth, together with several dozen further books, contain a teaching material which actually cannot be completely studied and effectively not converted by a human being in a single life alone. And when the author now negates the teaching that Muhammad has brought, then he insults the messenger and the teaching that he has brought, and that has hardly anything in common with the Quran, which Muhammad did not write, but writers who on the one hand wrote some things on his behalf, but falsified everything. This, on the other hand, while others wrote the Quran long after Muhammad, as it exists today as an end product, but in its entirety it has little or nothing to do with the real teaching of the truth, teaching of the spirit, teaching of the life that Muhammad and all the other preachers of the Nokodemian lineage taught.
The falsehoods that the man puts forward with regard to Muhammad and his teachings correspond to a slanderous shamefulness, for Muhammad never taught falsehoods and evil. The other statements in the Quran that exist today are based on untruths that have arisen through false interpretations or deliberate falsifications of the writers, all of whom lived long after Muhammad, so that they themselves did not hear his words of doctrine and knew only from hearsay concerning falsified oral traditions, or could write the Quran through their own fiction. That alone corresponds to the truth. Consequently, the writing of Hamed Abdel Samad corresponds to a shamefulness towards the honor and dignity as well as the teaching and task of the Prophet Muhammad. Even if the author does not know what is effective reality and truth regarding Muhammad and the teaching.
Probably he thinks very wisely, but for himself wise thinkers there is an old Nokodemian theorem, which says the following: he who presents himself as wise and displays wisdom but is not wise, does not thereby become wise, but remains stuck in his imprudence, learns nothing valuable, and gradually falls into stupidity.
I'm aware of that. But now I have to go and say goodbye, Edward. I cannot say when I will be back because there are a number of things that require my presence. Farewell and take care of your well-being.
I will. Goodbye, Ptaah.